Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls. Welcome to Tales with TR, episode 243A. Thanks to Dave Hansen, my guest last week, for a great chat. And, someone that I always wanted to meet. And much like Mr. Hansen talked about Paul Newman, he didn't let him down when they met. And he was a really down to earth guy and everything. It's kind of the way I feel about Dave. The first time I met him was in a flash. I was more fanboying than anything. Took a couple of pictures. It was at a ball hockey tournament, and he was there to sign picks. I didn't get into that I played pro or who my dad was or anything, being that my dad played in Minnesota right before he got there. So there was a link. But I didn't get into that first time I met him. It was just chaotic, you know what I mean? And I know that goes. Like, there must have been 100 people in line to get his autograph. So I just said, "Hey, man, big fans." And myself and my buddies got a pick. But then, like I said last year, I met him in Idaho, and I suck at golf, but we golfed together. It was part of the package put off by the Sun Valley Suns, and had an absolute blast. And we had a great conversation. It was nice. So thanks again, Dave. And tomorrow, folks, we're gonna have Katie Vincent. Now, the name might sound familiar. It sounded familiar to me, to you, especially if you're from Canada. Um, and I wasn't sure. I said, is that a figure skater? Is that? And then I remembered watching the Olympics last summer and watching a Canadian win by a hair in the 200-meter sprint, canoe sprint. She won by, I mean, it must have been, we'll find out, like a thousandth of a second. You couldn't even tell from the photo finish, didn't even do it justice. So I'm really excited. I met her at an event a couple weeks ago in St. Thomas, Ontario, the St. Thomas Sports Spectacular, along with some other just unbelievable athletes with so many great stories. I've spoken about it on here before. But Katie really piqued my interest that night. And I mean, there was, oh God, Scott Steiner was there, Thurman Thomas, Adam Oates, Brad May, of course, Davis Schneider with the Jays, who I was really excited to meet and talk to. There was, Brendan Rodney from the Olympic sprint team, relay team, who also won a gold. I mean, there was a lot of stories there that it was almost overwhelming. And, I was one of the athletes involved, and I felt, I had to speak last, maybe because I got some experience with it, but I felt kind of awkward going up after people like Thurman Thomas and, of course, Katie Vincent. But in any case, Katie's from Mississauga, I believe, outside Toronto. And it always, it's mesmerizing to me how you can go and literally mesmerizing, watch those athletes train so hard for such a short payoff possible reward. And they do it and they do it and they do it. And in a sport like canoeing, in hockey, you're really excited, but we pay attention the whole way, or any major sport that you're into. Not everybody's into canoeing. I don't mind saying it. I feel kind of ignorant, but that's it. Not everybody's into canoeing. And I watch the Royal St. John's Regatta here every year. I know what it is. I support our canoers at the Olympics when it's on TV, of course. But just canoeing doesn't really fit into my day. And it's one of those sports that becomes, ultra popular every 4 years in the summer. And I think, I don't know how, but I really think there should be more access and like awareness to things like that. Because if Katie can do it, you know, she's from Canada. She grew up with the same means as many people that are just next to water. I know there's all kinds here. I just never thought to get into it. Why did I get into hockey? I don't know. I suppose because my dad was coaching. My friends were into it. If my friends had been into curling, I would have done that. Really. Um, I played hockey and baseball because my dad was into it, and dad was still playing, so I'd be around. I was bat boy in baseball. Naturally, you develop a bit of an affinity for the sport. Same thing in hockey, right? Go up, collect the pucks for the boys and everything. and I entered my own league and novice at them. I grew up like playing sports and also being part of my dad's dressing room. The bat boy stuff was like for like right there, right? I mean, you're going to learn a lot about a sport being a bat boy, right? I mean, you'll learn from just watching in the stands, but when you're bat boy, you're like, okay, you learn like why would you choke up, Gully? Why did you choke up a little bit there? Um, why do you put tar on the bat, or not on? There's certain places you can put it for grip, not for distance on the ball or anything. I mean, how do you throw a curveball, right? How do you throw a knuckleball, right? The complexities and nuances of the game. Why would you steal on that pitch and not this pitch? Um, when do you put in a reliever, right? Things like that. What do you lead? I talked to the ace of the team, whoever was pitching on that particular day, whether it was Baz Whalen or Bobby Kent, and or whoever. Just like anything, it's a shorter schedule there. I think they play 24, 28 games. I played a bunch of years of baseball, of course, in the senior level, but my dad was, one of the best of all time. And my memories growing up of learning the game through my dad and his, around here, legendary teammates who were going to nationals. Some of them had been like drafted, playing AAA and stuff. And I'm down there. And I really, I guess subconsciously took that knowledge onto the diamond myself. Right. And so when you know, like I said, the nuances and certain things, or 3-0. My dad would always say, always take that pitch 3-0. I wouldn't have known it other than that. Little things like that, right? They'll make you a better player. And when you're a good player, right? I mean, I don't remember, but I remember really, like, people ask, is it a chicken or an egg? Um, you when did you become real good? And then you must have been really interested. Well, I think the interest happened because, like, and I'm out there skating every day with my dad's junior team, picking up the pucks, whatever. And you coaching the junior and the senior blades or whatever, same thing. So in the winter, I'd be in a dressing room, hands on, man, like, getting water bottles and whatever they needed done, like a stick boy, like a souped up version of stick boy, because we'd have a lot of other stuff to do. We had to get the boys smokes and everything back then, and a lot of other things that came into it. But you'll know the game, right? You'll hear the stories in the room, and some of them were like, "Oh my God, what you did? What with who? That girl does what?" I just shut up and go in the corner. I learned a lot about it. So, because of that, then I go back over. I mean, like I say, novice. I didn't make my first year at him. I didn't make the All-Star team. I'm serious. I'm not. I'm not exaggerating. There wasn't like half the year that I just played. I mean, I tried out for the Atom and I didn't make the Atom A or the Atom B blades. And, right around the time that all of this started taking place, I'm in the room and I'm skating more and everything. And the next year, as then they changed the ages, and so I played 3 years of Atom. The next year, I'm as a first year or a new age first year, because the ages changed. Then I made it and I was captain. And so I must have really, like, captain as a first year, when the year before I didn't make it at all, the A's or the B's. So something happened there. Now, so one might say he really worked on his game. I'd say it was all subconscious. I was in the room with Dad and everything, and getting pucks ready. And, each time that he's explaining a drill and I'm shooting pucks, 9 or 10 pucks in between drills, and then 20 or 30 at least after practice, and then working on my skating. At the end of the week, after 2 or 3 practices, that's like 100 plus pucks. And you do that every week for a year, and then 2 years and 3 years. It just, and then you become good, and then it becomes addictive, right? When all of a sudden I had time and space to think and go out there and make plays, and now the game becomes, it feels less like some kind of childhood dream, and that I'm just doing what my idols do, and I'm mirroring their actions. Now it becomes about my creativity. Now I'm changing the game, and maybe, I'm looking at Chris Tomlin play for the Mount Pro Blades, and great player. Maybe I can go further than Tomer. Like, maybe I can make my own, carve my own path here, which I did. But a lot of it becomes because I loved the game. I loved practicing, and a lot of it was subconscious. Other than in the sign, I always knew I needed to work on my skating, and that would seem like a chore. But everything else, honestly, was just playing like 8 hours a day of shinny, and then ball hockey, and then back to shinny. And whoever had ice, we'd go get it, and often put on our skates 4 5 times in a day. Whatever we could do. Old Mount Pearl tin can. Whenever there was free ice, and of course, it's not as cold here. There's not as much opportunity to skate outdoors. Like for example, right now it's what, February 4th. Oh, it's Mom's birthday. Jesus. Put in there after this. February 4th, and still like it snowed and then it rained and then it snowed. I don't even know if you can go to a pond yet. So some years go by in Newfoundland that we really don't get to skate on the pond. It's not cold enough consistently. I know a lot of you laugh at that. You don't think, especially if you're in the States right now, you're going, "Hey, you guys up there in the North Pole?" No. No, look where St. John's, Newfoundland is. We're far east. We're out in the fucking water, and we're more north than fucking New York and the northern states, but we're not that far. We're not as far as a lot of people think. And the weather here is much milder than it is in, say, northern Manitoba, or even just Manitoba, period. Alberta, and it's a different kind of cold. I don't like one more than the other. Back here we get, it's not that it's tropical either. It just hovers around zero. It'll get down. Wind chill gets down sometimes pretty fucking cold. And right now you got certain places like Bannerman Park with ice machines and stuff, but for the most part, um, we'll go right into like hopefully I like skating outdoors, and hopefully the ponds freeze over soon. Some of the smaller ones, of course, obviously, as go physics, they'll freeze over. But I'm looking out the window. I don't think we haven't had really much snow to even. I haven't had to shovel yet. Little bits and pieces, and then it's gone. The next day it'll go up to like 6, and it'll rain. Right. So same thing back then. When I talk about growing up and being on my skates all the time, honestly, a lot of it was just at the Tin Can, which was a nickname we used for the Mount Pearl Arena. And back then, it just wasn't as no one would say anything if there was. I don't know. The figure skaters were on from 5 to 6:30, and then minor hockey had it at 7. Then we'd go on for the 20 minutes. If my mom in between, you know what I mean? And no one really said much about it. Fonts didn't give a shit. City of Mount Pro were often there, or someone represent counselors, or they didn't give a fuck. I never once remember being reprimanded. I remember Fonts saying, if you guys don't clean up after yourselves, I'll never fucking let you back in here again. And if you're smoking darts in the rink, then get the fuck out, all that shit. Um, you know, and then we got old enough, like I'd try to sneak booze into his thermos or something. But that was never cool with anyone, and we played ball. We wanted the free ice time, so I remember often literally getting the ice at 1 2 o'clock in the morning because we could do it. Like, because someone would be there, and usually Fonts. When I say Fonts, the rink attendant that was almost famous, like Davy Crockett kind of status, like folk hero in Mount Pearl. And as we say this, I'm living in his house. I bought his old house, so it's my house now. Fonz had a stroke a few years ago and is still alive, but his health is a little bit in jeopardy. And love him, though. I always give him a shout out. But that was it growing up, right? So you're going to become decent at those sports. Baseball, same shit. I got into soccer because my friends did. We all kind of gave that a try, and we were pretty good because we were athletes. So that was the three things we were playing all the time: hockey, either ball or ice, and then soccer or baseball. I'm telling you right now, if I grew up in a family that was in a yacht club or something, or if I grew up in a family that was into fucking water polo, I don't know, cricket, um, bike riding, whatever. I'm active, but I don't remember having this huge love for a particular sport, until I started playing them, right? And I played hockey, and I guess I liked it because I'm watching it on TV. But when I'm 6 or 7 years old, or 8, I told you I sucked at hockey. Like I could barely skate. So I'm not looking at that like a realistic goal of mine. I'm looking at it like I'm watching a movie, right? Like Wayne Gretzky's a hero. Of course, I liked Wayne Gretzky, but I was really, I was, I didn't have a lot of self confidence for a long time that way. I don't remember having bad time with it or like crying because I wouldn't be like Wayne Gretzky. I just really didn't think it was possible. I wasn't one of those that said, "Oh, I'm going to make the NHL" when I was like 4 or 5. My earliest memories, they're around the hockey rink because Dad was always around it, and you know, it's our culture in Canada. If you're into sports, you're probably going to come across hockey at some point, and that was me. Um, so I'm always, point being, long point, I'm always intrigued by someone like Katie Vincent that can go and forge a path in something like canoeing because I'm really interested. I look and I'm like, man, that must be pretty fucking wild. And I don't know, there's something monotonous and boring to me about running. Everybody runs. There's running, of course, you know, your track and field or whatever. And great for all the runners. I knew that was an option. You got 2 legs. Like I knew that was an option. I was just never really into it. But I really am intrigued by certain parts of track and field, like javelin, high jump. Really, I love those. For some reason, long jump. I love watching those. But canoeing, I just never um, honed in on it. And this because the sprint canoeing here, you got the regatta. It doesn't seem as it's longer. You know, it's longer. It's the length of the lake at least once for most of the races. So and back again. And for Katie though, she won the gold in the 200 meter. It's like well, it is a sprint. I think 200 meters in a canoe, right? So I mean, you got to have strength, balance, um, incredible determination and focus. And a sense of rhythm that you don't have to have in a lot of sports, right? If I'm canoeing, just think about it. I have to have rhythm to some degree. Um, like I bet she can keep a beat. You know what I mean? Like I'll find all this out tomorrow. But I'm fascinated by certain Olympic sports, and that's one of them. And I'm not just saying it because she's coming on. She's becoming on. She's coming on because of that. I have come across many an Olympic athlete. I shouldn't say many. And to be honest, I should have Brad Gujju on here or some member of the one of the teams that he's won. I mean, the 2006 Jamie Korab's a buddy, played on that squad from CBN. Um, I am friends with a few of those guys, probably biggest with Korab. But there you go, Newfoundland's first medal at the Olympics, as far as I know. Definitely our first gold medal, 2006. Huge memory, man. I'm and I, you know, in curling, especially in recent years, Brad and the Brad Gujju team has won numerous Labatt Briers. I think they have 4 or 5 now. Okay, 6. So Brad's got six Briers, which is wild. 17, 18, 20, 22, 23, 24. It's wild because he was on the scene. I didn't realize that. So 06, they went to the Olympics. So that means that 05, 06, right up to 17. Like, and he was in the final. Like, I remember, like, really cheering. So he went more than a decade without winning. And now he's the all time. Now there's just a few years later, and he's the all time record skip with 6 and counting. Brad is a few years younger than me from the same hometown, Mount Pearl, and in phenomenal shape and very focused. There's a lot in common, I'm sure, he'd have with Katie Vincent. Anyway, that's for another time. I certainly do it. I was intrigued by meeting Katie, and therefore she will be on Tales with TR. And I did. I got one question. There was a girl sent me a message a few months ago, and her name was Carol, and she was from Sudbury, where we shoot Shoresy. Apparently, I'd come across her in background, and we meet so many that I couldn't remember that specific day. But we got talking online, and she said she was really into Shakespeare, and she noticed I had an English degree. Well, I have a folklore English, I have a double major, to be honest with you, which is just a BA with, yeah, with 12 English courses. Usually, I think I needed 12 folklore, 8 English, and 20 general studies. That gets you your Bachelor of Arts. I found out after the fact that I actually had 4 extra English courses that I just took not out of necessity, just because I was interested. And it turns out that they qualified me for a double major. So that's what they call it. It's only 4 extra courses. It sounds like some big extra degree, but it's not. So I do have some experience, and within my English degree, a lot of it I took as a complement to folklore, which is storytelling, because I had the book coming out, Tales of a First Round Nothing. So more than anything, although I was interested in, like, I took some awesome courses there. One was music lyrics as literature, and I focused on the Beatles because I didn't have to study much, having known most about them. It was just a very, very interesting course. And then, but I was playing senior hockey the whole time. So if there was a course I could take that I already knew a lot of the material, great. I know I'll do well on that without even having to go to class. Now I can get into the surrounding material if I'm interested, right? That's the way I looked at a lot of it. But the English, I was fascinated by folk tales, like the Brothers Grimm in the 1850s wrote like a lot of these stories that ended up being Disney, like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Hansel and Gretel, and on and on. You can read, and it's really interesting because they were first written as like tales for adults sitting around fires, like the wolf. Spoiler alert, doesn't always let Snow White go. Like there's a world in that he rapes her and he eats the grandmother and all that. It's crazy. It's fucking 200 years old almost, but that's, a lot of these are almost terrifying stories, and they got Disneyed up. And hey, a lot of people I'd be in there and they were upset at that, like the real thespians. Well, Walt Disney ruined a good story. Well, you know what? Fuck, man. Things change. I get it. I'm probably more comfortable with the story of Snow White now than then, but it doesn't really matter. Read it by both. That's the fucking beauty of all of it, of English and adaptation and change. And the reason I'm saying that is because Carol asked me my favorite movie based on a Shakespeare play. Okay. Now, I loved Shakespeare. I shouldn't say love, or I'd know everything. He's got so much, man. And like a lot of it's poetry and sonnets and stuff. But of the plays, okay, I really got into four or five. And that's the tip of the iceberg. And I don't know, there's a YouTube clip, sayings that Shakespeare came up with. Worth your while. Check it out. Um, just to tell you how much he's still part of our culture and our, the English language. But anyway, I got to get going. But my favorite would be 10 Things I Hate About You. It's a lot of people, when I mention it, I don't think they realize it, but it's based on Shakespeare, the Shakespeare play, The Taming of the Shrew. Julia Stiles being the shrew. I know it opens. I forget Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character's name in the movie, but you're kind of duped into thinking it's all going to be about him at the beginning. And Shakespeare had that wild way. Like, it's not just boy meets girl, problem arises, girl leaves boy, girl comes back, they live happily ever after, right? Like there's a lot of movies now, or you're not just a romance, even an action movie, there's everything's going well. Think Marvel superhero or something. Everything's going well. A problem is presented. Seems like the hero can't solve it. Something happens to change the tide. Boom, the hero solves it. But with Shakespeare, it was way more intricate. There was a lot, and it designed that way, like just a lot going on. Like each character would have something, and then there's a smaller plan. It can't just be that, again, I can't remember his name in the movie, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It can't just be that he wants Bianca, right? And it has to be that how is he going to get her? And maybe he can approach her by going through somebody else who's also working for another dude. And there's three girls involved, and it's always a little bit of a comedy of errors, even when it's not always a comedy. I don't know, you wouldn't consider Romeo and Juliet a comedy, but there's lots of funny stuff that happens in there. And I used to hate doing it in school and looking at people and knowing that they'd like it if they only understood it. So I'm not a huge fan of the Shakespeare movies that use his language, even though I love his language and there's a time and a place and I'll study it and I will watch those. But you almost need a pen and a paper if you're, or at least, you're stopping it once in a while, because his language is so great, and he's is the greatest writer ever, in my opinion. So, of the English language anyway. So it's either so comedic or beautiful or interesting that you're like hanging on a paragraph or a verse that, as you're still trying to dissect it, it's going on and on because it's also quick dialogue. So I highly recommend movies that Shakespeare modernized. Again, it's not always the way to go. There's some total clunkers out there, but 10 Things I Hate About You. And there's enough Shakespeare in it. They do keep some of the original wording. And within the movie, like, there's an English class and they're in there and they're like studying Shakespeare and they're throwing a few Easter eggs at you if you like that sort of thing. But even overall, I mean, he's just the greatest storyteller there has ever been, in my opinion. And it's one of the most universally loved stories. I won't say greatest, but I think The Taming of the Shrew is a really amusing play, to say the least. And 10 Things I Hate About You is one of the best adaptations now, and it's also Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger, who were really coming into their own at the time as actors. Folks who are downtown St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, you want to have a beer, go to Trinity Pub, DJ's Pub, of course, Rob Roy Confusion, the Martini Bar, Green Sleeves, and of course the Bull and Barrel. You're going to go for a bite to eat, why not do it at Loose Tie, Blue on Water, or Wedgwood Cafe, who also do catering. You want to work out? Go to Ryan Power Conditioning, strength, balance, body, mind. Ryan Power Conditioning on Rope Walk Lane. Speaking of streets, on Torbay Road and on Kemount Road, here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, live Mr. Lube. Mr. Lube, live, laugh, lube. While you're at it, check out the Carpet Factory. And, of course, Crown Cabinets. No better place to head if you're looking for cabinets or the like. Check it out. Jordan Escott, Crown Cabinets. True Hockey, take what's yours. And, of course, Pitbull Pain Relief. The pain sticks that just don't quit. Go to pitbullpainrelief.com to see what all the fuss is about. Muggsy. I loves me Muggsy Jeans. Thank you, Ace, and everybody at Muggsy Jeans. True Hockey, Corey Gregory, thanks again for the gear, my friend. And season 4, halfway through here in Canada. You'll be getting it soon in the United States. Keep an eye out on Hulu. Right here in Canada, it's on Crave, of course. Thanks for listening, folks, and I'll be back tomorrow with more Tales with TR.